Hi, it's Richard Pearse from FinextraTV, and delighted to be joined by our good friend Mayor Hennerkes. How are you?
Very well, thank you very much, Richard. How are you?
Yeah, great. Good to see you. Mayor Hennerkes from EBRD, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. She's Director of Climate Strategy and Delivery in the Green Financial System division at the bank. So right at the pulse of everything that's going on in the area that we want to talk about today. So first of all, you were at COP27, Sharm el-Sheikh, which is casting our minds back a little bit. But tell us, going into that and the event itself, what did it mean for you guys? What was your impression, and what was the work that was done there that we should know about?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I think COP27, it was three big things that we brought to the table, or that we also brought back to us. One, certainly Paris alignment. As EBRD, we've fully committed to be fully Paris aligned now since the 1st of this January. So that was obviously hotly debated and discussed with our stakeholders at the COP, and we got a lot of good input, and we're ready to go. The second big topic for us was looking at the climate transformation really at a country system level. You may have seen some announcements. We were deeply involved with NWEFI, which is the Egyptian initiative, the Nexus of Water, Food and Energy, of which EBRD will be organizing the energy pillar. And I think it's just a good example how we're really trying to bring together sort of the decommissioning part, transformation of energy systems, and all of this obviously backed up by finance and policy reform. So that's a good model for us that we're thinking now if we can, if and how we can replicate that perhaps in other countries other than Egypt. And the third thing, you've heard it everywhere. It was the COP of implementation. That's certainly quite right. So all the topics that we've been thinking about and mulling, over in the past maybe year or two have really hardcore entered the implementation stage now. So this is where we're at.
Well, that's why I wanted to ask the question, because obviously we're doing the predictions 2023 series at Finextra, and I think it's important to understand the sort of context of something as big as COP for an organisation like you. But what do you think is going to happen? What are your predictions for 2023 as it matters to the financial service industry and sustainable finance, and of course the tech industry?
Yeah, so definitely Paris alignment. This is our big thing. We have been quite successful, and many others as well, in the past years to identify, structure, and do climate finance. But now, this is not enough. We cannot only look at the green and then everything else, we do business as usual. We need to make sure that we continue to expand on and obviously scale up on the green finance, but everything that is not per se green finance, that also cannot anymore go against the goals of the Paris Agreement. So we really need to make sure that everything else that's maybe not dedicated green line, so to speak, or a dedicated green bond, for example, also doesn't negatively impact on our ability to reach the net zero by 2050. So that's, I think, a big one. And you can see it in the finance industry. Banks are committing to net zero by 2050, but they need to now really go into the implementation phase. They need to come up with very robust transition plans. So how do I get to this 2050? What are my robust interim targets? So what am I going to achieve by 2025, 2030, that then allows me to reach the net zero by 2050? So I think Paris alignment is a big theme. Then, of course, after COP27, we've also had COP15 in Montreal. Nature is an important topic for us as well. We need to mainstream it together with climate. We need to link it up. And we also really need to start thinking now about business models. How can we actually finance nature positive investments? Because I think we're quite good now to identify, we have a good idea of the biodiversity agenda, but where we're still not quite there yet is to really channel finance towards that. And that needs to happen this year. Then you've mentioned the tech industry. Of course, the big thing that's still sort of the woodwork behind all of those themes that I've mentioned is, of course, the ESG and climate data, and now also nature-related data, biodiversity data. So, it's still not where we need it to be. We need to get much better at data collection, gathering, and then of course making sense of it, and especially financial industry, because right now what I see is the data landscape is very scattered, very fractured. There's a lot of great products, but they tend to be quite niche. So they tend to focus maybe on a very specific subset of ESG data. And what especially banks really need is a bit more of an encompassing data product that allows them to mainstream and link up all those different themes, whether it be nature, supply chains, climate risks, etc. So I think this is what we need. And then also, of course, as EBRD, we work with emerging markets and developing markets. So what we also need really is data that is available and affordable. We cannot just have very fancy, highly developed, but highly expensive niche data products that may be fantastic in itself, but are just, very exclusive and cannot be accessed easily by, a small SME in Central Asia, or, a small local bank in Northern Africa. So I think this is where we need to really push. Maybe one last thing I may say, if I can. I think what's also really important now is, because we have all those themes, we've thought a lot in the past year or two about the nature, of course, climate, Paris alignment, supply chain matters, the data side of things. I think the overarching trend that I would like to point out for this year is also banks, the financial industry, but also corporates. We really need to do a lot of reform on our internal ESG and climate corporate governance, because we need to absorb those complexities. We need to absorb all these topics, and, in order to really mainstream it throughout. And in order to do that, we need the boards, they need to think about it and integrate it in strategy. We need the business development people to think how they can harness sort of the green opportunities or the biodiversity opportunities. We need the client relationship managers to make this part of their conversation with clients. We need risk management to look, in the more classic fashion at ESG risks, compliance, because there's so much regulation evolving and developing and coming out that so, financial institutions need to keep track of that. And then, of course, audit. Yeah, they need to look at it. They need to make sure that there's no greenwashing, there's no social washing. So I think really financial institutions specifically, they really need to revamp themselves internally now to have a robust corporate governance to be able to really manage all those topics.
Fantastic. Well, look, I think that's an amazing set of predictions for 2023, in a sense, carrying on a lot of the themes we've been talking about. But as you said, it's about moving from the sort of blah, 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 if you will, to the implementation, and now really hard execution so that we get those goals. So, Maya, for now, thanks so much for dropping in and giving us your insights, and look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Richard, and speak soon.